Hello everyone, welcome to ACCA's Fireside Chat. I am also delighted to welcome Arif Masud Mirza on our show here with us. He is heading the Regional Head of Policy for ACCA. So Arif, thank you very much for being with us here today.
It's good to be here,
Yeah,
Ahmad.
how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I believe you just drove from Peshawar
Yes,
this morning.
yes, we did an event there
Yeah,
in Peshawar.
yeah. How did that go?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. We had the finance minister there,
Oh,
so lots of positive messages.
Uh-huh.
Lots of young people in KP.
Excellent.
You know, so we're very excited about the future.
Oh, great. So Arif, let's just kick in and so for Fireside Chat,
Yep.
this is a bit of a different kind of a format. It's a bit sort of
Yep.
informal.
Yep.
We're going to be trying to get to know who Arif Masud Mirza is. So yes, we'll be touching upon your professional life, but
Yep.
we also would be interested in hearing from you about your personal life.
Good.
Who is Arif? How did Arif's journey start?
Yep.
Where did it begin?
Yep.
All the way to here.
Yep.
And we'll be discussing some stuff related to ACCA and.
Well, I think my life's quite average, but if it is interesting, then I'm going to try and share the good times with you guys as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So where did it all begin for you? Because you grew up in the UK.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm 57 years old now, so I'm not one to hide my age. So I did spend a lot of years in London, and my parents were what you would call first generation migrants. Mm-hmm. So, like many young people today, my parents, who were young in the early 60s, made a decision to leave Pakistan and create a new life for themselves in London. Mm-hmm. And I went there when I was about 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were born here?
Born here, yes.
Okay.
I was actually born in Karachi, of all places. So even though I live in Lahore, I was born in Karachi, in the Holy Family Hospital,
Wonderful.
which is an old Christian hospital, still around today. I lost my birth certificate once, and I went there to get a duplicate. And believe me, their administration is so good, I had a duplicate within 10 minutes.
Wow.
Wow. So that's where I was born. So and ended up in London with my parents, who were very young.
And you began your schooling in the UK?
Yes, well, not straight away. I was only 2.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I ended up there. Yeah. My mum was still a teenager, So my mum was from Jammu, Kashmir.
Oh, wow.
And my dad's from Lahore.
Okay.
And so, 60s? If the audience follows generational theory, then I'm a baby boomer.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
you are.
generational theory, I'm a baby boomer.
Uh-huh.
So that means born in the 60s and became an adult. Post it when you're in your 20s, 30s, in your adult years.
No wonder you love Facebook.
Always
on Facebook. Yeah.
So that's a bit of background, very early life,
Okay.
And the most interesting story that I have from my parents from the 60s, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so, very working class, middle class background that my parents had. They worked very hard in those early days, like most migrants do.
Yeah.
And they worked very hard. But the greatest story I ever heard from my mum, her first job was in Sketchley Dry Cleaners.
Oh, wow.
In London. And one day, who walked into the shop? I don't know if you've heard of the Beatles.
Yeah, I've heard that story.
So the Beatles walked in to get their dry cleaning done.
Yep.
And my mum didn't know who they were. But Paul McCartney and John Lennon, she met them.
Wow.
In I think 65.
So how did she realize?
Later on.
Later on.
Yeah, later on.
Somebody told her.
Yeah. So that's her moment of fame.
Oh, wow. Wow. And then tell us about your sort of college days. What
Yeah.
was Arif Masud Mirza like in college? You come across as somebody who'd be pretty cool and interesting.
Yeah, I think
person.
I'm cool.
Yeah, yeah. We do realize that. Yeah. So what were your college days like?
Yeah.
In,
Well, very, very much a Londoner.
okay.
So as you can imagine, growing up in London,
Mm-hmm.
ever since you were a toddler.
Yeah.
So so I've got that part of my personality, which in some jargon you say you're an Anglophile.
Mm-hmm.
So so those early days in London when I went to primary school, went to high school in London, big high schools, 1,600 kids all running around, screaming in one great big school. And then because London's a very cosmopolitan place, so you're interacting with people from all over the world, in the 70s. So I went into high school in 72. And you've got West Indians there, you've got Indians, Pakistanis, and then if you remember, there was a period in history where the Ugandans decided that a lot of Asians would be expelled from Uganda and Kenya. They all ended up there as well. So it was a huge melting pot of cultures, which is great because I think diversity added to my personality.
Yeah.
So you spend time with lots of different cultures, in a co-education school, which was great.
So you still visit London very often.
Yeah.
We do know that. So if you were to compare, London during your time when you were there and growing up there, and London today, how would you compare it? Do you feel that the city has changed, the culture has changed a bit?
Yeah. Well, it's still a huge melting pot. London's still a huge melting pot. Yeah. Lots of young people are now entering London, so it's a very young city as well. Obviously, London is a place where, it's historically it's been dedicated to building up, work and your life.
Exactly.
So it's still very fast paced. People do work hard, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And you can see that in people's lives and their expressions. They are working hard. And that should be the mindset, in order to make nations and make cities and make societies. You have to work hard.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And then Arif moves to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's quite a.
It's a big move. Yeah.
So
exactly. I think
it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's usually the other way around. But I think my early days were I always had that connection with my grandparents back home.
Okay.
So there were lots of visits from London to Pakistan. So visits to Karachi, visits to Lahore, always maintaining that family connection. So there, and my dad, who was a lawyer, so he was a barrister from Pakistan. My mother then eventually became a teacher.
Wow.
So there was always this environment within our family, that we would one day, the dream of most migrants, first is to make your wealth and then to go back home and settle down. Most people go there with that intention. Most middle class people. So I think that was part of a compelling reason for us to come back here.
Back to Pakistan.
Yeah.
So Arif, I mean, you're a member as well.
Yeah.
You've obviously studied ACCA.
Yeah.
And we are sort of 115-year-old organization, and you've spent a better part of your life in this organization. There's 3 decades, roughly, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So we started ACCA in Pakistan. I say we because it's always been a team effort.
Yeah.
So it's about back in 96, 97 was when the original seeds of ACCA Pakistan were planted. So what's that? That's 20, 24, 25 years. 25 years. That's a long time, yes. Yeah. Originally, partly the success of the business model really comes from the leadership as well. So if I assume that I was the early leader of ACCA here, part of that success was because of my own struggle in life in order to gain, a profession for myself. Yep. So there are many young people who are probably listening to this, and their parents obviously want, a career for their sons and daughters, and young people want that and aspire for that as well. But that journey is always difficult. You don't always meet your initial sort of desires to become either, a footballer or a doctor or an actor or a singer, whatever you want to be in life. But then you have to make a living for yourself. You have to find that equilibrium point in your life. So for me, it ended up because I was hard working. I did work hard at my studies. I did dedicate lots of hours to getting through the exams. So I became an ACCA member, ultimately, in order to secure a decent professional livelihood.
Oh, very good. But why ACCA? I mean, things were very different back in your day.
Yeah.
When you were at college, I probably wasn't even born back
then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. I'm born in 77. So I was not around in 72. So what was happening, and what made you choose ACCA as a qualification?
Yeah.
Or a sort of
So I think, I'd done my articleship in London.
Okay.
And the circumstances were such that, I wanted a more flexible way of achieving, professional qualification.
Okay.
And ACCA allowed that. There were personal commitments that I had to make, health reasons, etc., within the family, that I needed a flexible approach to qualifying.
So it was the flexibility.
The flexibility. There are always ups and downs in life. You can't follow a script all the time. You have to maybe sacrifice, your academics, your professional life for other things as well, which require your emotional attention. And therefore, at that time, I needed a qualification that allowed me to do that. So that's how I ended up eventually, qualifying as an ACCA.
And now, Arif, you're heading policy for the MESA region for ACCA. I'm sure people would also be interested in understanding what role does policy play. We are providing quality qualification in a finance and accountancy discipline. How does policy sort of fit in?
I think the best way to describe that is that accountants, professional accountants, whether they be CFOs, whether they be controllers of accounts, or whether they be heads of treasury or company secretaries, they are part of society. They are part of the ecosystem, if you like. The careers or the professional life of the finance function depends upon a number of forces. So if I look into the future and I say, how is the accounting profession going to change? What are the forces which are going to influence the profession in the future? And that's the best way I can describe policy, is that we look at 5 forces in the future. So we know technology is a huge force that's going to impact the profession. So we have some thoughts around how is technology going to influence the future. So that's one policy plank. And then we know global economics is a big influence. Look at what's happening between America and China. Look at what's happening in Brexit. So we know all of those global economic forces are going to impact economies and therefore impact the profession. We know regulation, risk and governance all clubbed into one. You've got global regulations. You've got laws around climate change, etc., around anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism finance. All these are global commitments, and these are forces that are going to influence, again, the profession. So all of these things, and the most important thing is, part of our team is at the moment in Davos. Climate change, the biggest theme for the world and world leaders.
Yes,
it's climate change. How do we manage climate? How do we ensure that businesses are sustainable? So I think, and those forces are also going to influence accountants. So you can make that link between accountants who historically were always focused on recording transactions, preparing reports, doing audits. Now, those things have to have meaning and a purpose as well. Not only to grow financial capital, but also to grow natural capital and social capital.
Exactly.
So those things are really important now.
So Arif, I mean, we are in education, and we are delivering in itself. Education it's for public. It adds on the public values for public good. But your work specifically around policy, it's to do with a lot to do with adding public value for wherever we operate. How does that make you feel? I mean, because that's what you do, and
I think,
I'm sure it must
I think the most rewarding part of that is about connecting different communities. So we're able to, with a piece on, say, environmental, social governance, value creation, we can connect policymakers with our members. We can connect organizations like the Chambers of Commerce with others as well. So the greatest reward is our ability through the policy work to connect different stakeholders. And whilst we may not be able to deep dive in a lot of those areas, but certainly we can then drive the dialogue. So if you can drive the dialogue, get people to network and share, that then often leads to solutions.
So Arif, like accountants and finance professionals of today, do you think that they fully understand that the role they have to play in adding that public value, whether it be in Pakistan or whether it be in UK or any other market where they are present? I mean, they're present all over the world. But do you think that they truly understand and recognize the role that they have to play, and how important they are?
And I think it's a great question, and at the heart of it, there's a simple answer. At the heart of it is integrity. That if you do have a sound, and so if you do have a sound moral compass that you can always rely upon in life, to do the right thing, to do things in a way that they're honest and straightforward. If you can, ensure that the work you do is without influence, and you can do it in a professional way and conduct your life and your professional life and your personal life in a way that is authentic and true.
But do you think that
that's good for business, that's good for countries as well?
But do you think that accountants and finance professionals, those that you interact with, do they realize and understand the role that they have to play?
Well, I believe all humans, know what is the right thing to do. It may sound silly, but even prisoners know that they've done the wrong thing. So everybody knows what is right and what is wrong. And society as a whole, most individuals want to do the right thing. Professional bodies can ensure that because they have a code. Every year you have to ensure that you sign up to a code, of conduct and code of ethics. And then if you go astray, there's always ways in which you can call somebody up and ask them for advice and say, am I doing the right thing?
So Arif, what makes Arif Masud Mirza wake up in the morning?
Right. Well, apart from
your eggs and pains, of course, but apart from that.
Apart from that, I mean, look, for the last 20 odd years since I've been working at ACCA, it's always been easy to get out of bed in the morning, right? Because there is a real purpose to what we do. I think for the entire team, the very fact that we've created so many opportunities for so many young people, in every one of our functions, we can connect with that. So I think we're all enthusiastic to get out of bed in the morning. We've got a great culture and team atmosphere at the office. Everybody has a sense of, the fact that they are adding value to young people's lives. creating job opportunities for them, creating opportunities so that they can be socially mobile. A lot of our members are now working overseas. They're working in the Middle East. They're working in Europe. So that's a great sense of achievement.
It must be, I'm sure, a sense of pride as well.
Yeah.
You must be so many members that you probably would have had witnessed when they were students and when they started off, and now they are sort of all over the world.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one particular example is she just came to Pakistan a couple of weeks ago. A young student I met over 20 years ago, Banu Sheikh. She was visiting us. She's now over 20 years. She's now a partner at KPMG at Canary Wharf in London. So she's reached the very top of the profession. She was a young woman, a girl when she joined ACCA in Lahore. In that tremendous journey. And that's so rewarding, isn't it, when you've got young women achieving that level of leadership and success.
So Arif, I mean, again, going back to your journey with ACCA, if there is one thing that you could change or have done differently during the time you've been here at ACCA?
I don't think there is. In hindsight, it's really easy. But you have to navigate your way through your personal life, through your professional life. As long as you do maintain that moral compass, which always, if it points to north, what direction to go in. If you have that moral compass, and if you use that as a mechanism for getting through your business life, your professional life, then you're always going to end up doing the right thing. And you can't go back and change things. There's always ups and downs. And
Any advice for our members, our students, our stakeholders, our young professionals, sort of based on, from your experience, any advice that you would like to pass on?
Actually, we did run a marketing campaign a long time ago now where we showed young people in different professions. So normally people think of accountancy in the past as a dry career. But I think what young people have to remember is that if there are young people interested in aeroplanes, then go and work in the airplane industry as a finance person. If you like music, then try to ensure that ultimately in your career you become a finance professional in the music industry.
Yes.
If you want to play, if you've ever dreamt of playing football, try and achieve a career in the sports industry. So that you're always connected with the thing that you really enjoy.
And you're passionate about it.
And you're passionate about it. So, always look at that in your career journey. It's not just about, getting a salary and taking it home at the end of the day. If ultimately you can find a career where you're amongst people that you really like to be with, and you've got a sense of purpose as well. That's very satisfying.
I think that's very rightly said, Arif, and I think that's quite a valuable advice for all of our stakeholders, because I also personally believe that if you're passionate about something, and if that's also your work, I think that's a great formula for success. So, well, thank you very much, Arif. It has been great having you on Fireside Chat.
Great.
And
thanks a lot, Hamad. Thank you.
Thank you.